Hi, and welcome to Hoffman's Hot Seat. I'm Tom Hoffman with One-to-One Media, and I'm joined today by Frank Paterno, Vice President of Marketing at Intelliverse. And today, Frank and I will be talking about opportunities for leveraging cloud-based contact center services. Frank, thanks so much for joining us today.
Hey, good to be here, Tom. Thanks.
So, Frank, maybe as a starting point, can you talk about ways in which companies can leverage cloud-based contact center services with ACD?
Yeah, sure. Cloud-based services have, first, I think, really took off, especially in call centers on the CRM side of the house. Software, Salesforce.com was one of the biggest cloud-based software companies that really got even large enterprises comfortable with using, software that wasn't resident in their own network. So it makes sense then that a lot of the CRM packages that our call centers are using have started to get put in the cloud. And now what's happening, and what Intelliverse does, is really take that whole cloud mentality and bring it to the communication side, specifically the voice side. Calls coming in and out, chat sessions coming in and out, emails coming in and out, and taking all of the software and know-how and even the network to handle all those calls and messages and take them out of the call center's company's network, put them in the service provider's network. It not only has the benefit of not having to worry about buying software or maintaining it or upgrading it, but when you talk about, a normal call volume of 1,000 calls an hour, and maybe your company did something good or bad that made that burst up to 3,000 calls an hour, now you don't need to worry about your telephony network and calling your carriers and telling them to add more circuits, and, typically that takes a few weeks anyway. So that whole burstability aspect really lends itself well to specifically call centers. And so I think as call centers are getting more comfortable with this cloud aspect and specifically the cloud communications aspect, it's going to have a really good impact for them.
Sure. Yeah, it offers that kind of scalability, especially not only for seasonal businesses, but businesses that have, if they have certain campaigns that might lead to spikes in calls and contact center.
Right. Right. And I think they're bad because sometimes it's, a lot of times we think of bad, like, oh, they had a defective product out there. They had an outage that customers had to call about. But sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's over demand for a product that customers all of a sudden were, they put out a good press release and people want information about it. Sometimes it could be good. So, but the only bad would be not being able to handle those communications. So
sure. So before customers get to the ACD option, what are some ways to lead them to self-service opportunities?
Yeah. So self-service is an area we've spent 20 years in. We come from the IVR space. The first thing we have to consider is that the companies want to provide these automation options because it's cheaper. Let's just be honest. Let's call it what it is. It's cheaper if you can get a customer to use an automated option to check their balance or make a payment than it would be to have it go to a live human. So the trick, though, is figuring out what to automate and to automate it well. I think the first rule of thumb is look for opportunities that lend themselves to simple interactions. If it's going to be a 6-step process with complicated inputs, you don't want to try to automate that. Let that go. Use your humans for that because that's just going to make your customers angry. It's not going to work. They're going to opt out of the automation process anyway. Look for simple things. Enter your account number. What's my balance? Or let me recognize your phone number. Let me check the status of an order. Let me proactively tell you something about your account. Let me tell you what hours I'm open. Let me tell you how to get directions to get to me, addresses to send payments, all things like that. Very, very, very simple. And everybody's got to know their business. What we suggest is getting in touch with the people that run the call centers, the supervisors that hear the day-to-day calls, and say, what are the top 3 reasons people are calling you? And then go through those reasons and say, could this reason be automated? I had a discussion with somebody recently at a conference. And she said, yeah, the number one reason people call is to check the status of their order. I said, oh, that's perfect. Then you have to figure out, well, how do you identify the customer? Do you know their phone number? Do you know, do they know their account number? Here's another thing. Please enter your account number. Well, I don't have my account number. Is it on one of these papers? Make it easy for them. Think like them. But that's what I would do. I would go to the front line find out what they're getting the most calls about, and start simple. Put one or two options in and let everything else go to live humans. Once you get that right, add a third option, add a fourth option. Get good at it before you try to create this massive automated self-service voice portal, and you just make everybody angry. So start small, start with what you know, and always keep it simple.
Sure, that's good advice. So, as you know, there are some customers that prefer to use self-service for some of these rote capabilities that we're talking about. If they want to check a balance or some other simple inquiry, but there are other customers where there's a stigma attached to self-service, and I'm wondering if you could offer some advice on how to ease some of those customers into considering the use of self-service technologies.
Absolutely, I think this is the biggest thing to worry about, and some of these tips or options here are not hard at all. We all know what this is. It's voicemail jail. It's I just want a human. Press 0. We all have gotten to that point. So how do we ease our customers? And there's lots of easy ways. Number one, keep the conversation relaxed. You know the brand of your business. You know the tone you have to set. So you have to work within those guidelines. But don't remind them they're talking to a computer. So, for example, when these automated services first came out years ago, the voices, even if they were professionally recorded voices, they sounded very human and very computer, and thank you for calling and please enter your number. No. And, very formalized, very structured. If you listen now, but if you listen to the good ones that you call, maybe a couple of the airlines out there, a couple of the banks have really spent a lot of time with this. When you call, it says, hey, how are you doing? Good morning. And, it knows what time it is where you are. Why doesn't it say good morning, good evening, good night? But then it's real casual. Hey, what can I do for you today? And then if you enter, an option wrong, it doesn't say, I did not understand that, please enter another option. It says, hey, I'm having trouble hearing you. Can you tell me that again, or could you try that option again? Real casual. Companies are afraid to do it, I think, a little bit because they're like, oh, that's not professional. But it works. Treat yourself as a consumer and listen when you're calling these ones. The ones you like are the ones that are kind of, they're casual, they're interactive.
Right.
First thing, that's easy to do. You could take your existing IVR script, re-record it, and have that done. Second thing is take out superfluous information. We all know your menu options have changed. We know it. You don't have to tell us. That's 5 seconds that, everybody just rolls their eyes when they hear that, and, they don't want to hear it anymore. Take that out. Be careful with, please visit our website at, I made the attempt to call you. I probably don't want to go to your website. You can remind me maybe, but, don't tell me I could get better and faster service on your website because I'm already calling you. So just be careful with that too. Those are some really, really easy things to do. Personalization would be the next part. This takes a little bit more work on the company's side, but it really will go a long way. If you know who the customer is, if you recognize their phone number and it is a current customer and you can match it up to a record, you might want to say, hey, is this Tom calling? And all of a sudden you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. Yeah, it's Tom. Okay, now they know everything about your account status. If you're in collections, they can send you to collections, so that's good for them. If you've got an order that you just placed, they might say, hey, Tom, are you calling to check on the status of your recent order? Oh, my God, you didn't even have to go through and press 6 options to get there. So try to identify your customer and then offer, flex your menus or flex your options based on what time period that customer is in. Has the customer not called or made an order in 2 years? Hey, Tom, good to hear from you. Welcome back. What can we do for you today? The only caveat there that I would say be careful with is don't freak people out with the big brother aspect. Sometimes if a customer calls and they automatically recognize you, whoa, that's too personal. So, a key around that might be if you have a customer that has called in and has had an interaction or they talk to an agent, ask them and say, hey, next time you call, we've got this new feature where we can automatically recognize you. Can I enroll you in that? And so that, they know it's coming, they might expect it. When they hear it, they might say, oh, yeah, I remember the last time I called, they asked me about that. Just the other way we've seen end users or callers sort of react adversely to I think it's the big brother, they know everything about me. Are they watching me? That kind of thing. So,
yeah.
Keep it casual. use personalization, and just make your customers aware of it. Don't surprise them.
Yeah, thanks. It's great advice, especially from the standpoint of trying to put yourself in the customer's shoes.
That's what it is. We all we call these things all the time. We interact with call centers. The only thing to be careful about there is, yes, we all have interactions, but we may not be the typical customer of our own company. This happens to us a lot here. We're a technology company. We have a lot of technologists here. And so they'll constantly say, well, what the customers want is, this complicated website because it gives them all these options. And then we have to remember, sometimes our customers are not quite that advanced. They don't want all those options. They want low tech. So know your audience and be careful about using your own experiences and portraying them on your customers. Sometimes it works, but just make sure that you're matching up the profiles of the personality types.
Great. Thanks so much for joining us today. Appreciate this.
Talk to you.
You too.